There's not much that's more challenging than bringing home a new baby. And I can tell you because I have done some really hard things in my life. I've stayed up for 48 hours without sleep during residency. And I have my pilot's license. I can fly a plane through the air by myself. And I have gotten lost in a plane. And bringing home a baby was actually scarier. I remember looking down at my freakishly tiny 4.5-pound, 6-week premature daughter and knowing it was insane that I was supposed to take care of her. Nobody even asked for my certification. I could just take care of a fragile creature that depended 100% on the kindness of 2 strangers, me and her dad, to take care of her. And then I was supposed to produce food for her. I thought that was going to be the easy part. It's supposed to be so natural to breastfeed. And it is, but it's also complicated, and there are experts at it. Experts at breastfeeding medicine. Breastfeeding is incredible. I just interviewed a breastfeeding expert, and she shared the most interesting insights about this interaction between a mother and baby. I can't wait to share what she told me. I'm Dr. Wendy Hunter, and I'm the pediatrician next door. I'm that doctor friend you call for practical advice about your kid's health. I mix the science of medicine with the reality of parenting. Shelby Abramson is a family nurse practitioner and an international board-certified lactation consultant. She was a nurse on the mother-baby unit. That's where moms and babies go in the hospital. And she was a neonatal intensive care nurse, as well as being a mother. So she knows what she's talking about. And unlike me as a mother, she's actually certified to talk about this stuff. We started our conversation at the beginning with what parents should do in the first hour right after birth.
There is evidence to support that if baby latches in or around that first hour of life, that child is imprinted with how to do breastfeeding. And so in the world of labor and delivery, in the world of birth, we want to support that first hour of life being uninterrupted, skin to skin with mom and baby, anything that needs to happen, vital signs, erythromycin, vitamin K, weights, it can all really wait. And a lot of the hospitals that are delivery hospitals that are under kind of the WHO guidelines, the World Health Organization guidelines of baby friendly initiative, they will promote that first hour of skin to skin being uninterrupted. And so it's definitely something that parents during pregnancy can talk to their providers about, is whether or not they're planning to deliver in a baby friendly environment, at a baby friendly birth center, in a baby friendly hospital. And even if they're planning cesarean delivery, can we do skin to skin in the operating suite?
So then what should parents do in the hospital on the first few days that can help establish breastfeeding? Are there any pitfalls? Are there any things that really help?
I think one of the best things that parents can do is to plan to be there. It is so much better, in my opinion, to stay in the hospital for 48 hours, 72 hours after delivery than take your newborn baby home, come into the clinic for your first pediatric visit, and realize whether it's high jaundice levels, which is hyperbilirubinemia, or excess weight loss, and now you're kind of scrambling. Maybe you're going back to the hospital, you're potentially seeking out resources for help that would have potentially been embedded. So my recommendation of how to make things work in the hospital is to not be in too much of a hurry to go home. It's not the most glamorous time of anybody's life, but I think if a new mom can plan to spend those first few days skin to skin. So, you've already heard me say it once, skin to skin in the first hour, skin to skin in the first days. And quite frankly, if somebody wants to spend their entire maternity leave skin to skin with their baby, I think it's a great choice. You're not going to miss out on anything. You're not going to lose the opportunity to read babies' early hunger cues. And that's what's one of the things that really helps support breastfeeding, is bringing baby to the breast when baby is calm, when mom is calm. And so being skin to skin with your infant allows you to pick up on those signals and cues pretty early.
You're so right that the hospitals tend to push moms out really early. And there are a lot of moms that I see in follow up at day 3, 4, 5 who don't have their milk in yet, but they've been pushed out of the hospital on triple feeds. So that involves pumping. Can you tell me more about pumping and triple feeds? And is this right? Is this the right strategy?
Great question. I am going to first say something that about what you just said, which is, and their milk isn't in yet. And there are a couple of things in my hopefully long and industrious career in the world of lactation. One of them is to change language around milk coming in, because I think it's a bit of a fallacy and a misnomer. What I like to say is the milk transitioning, because I never want to imply that a new mom doesn't have milk. She has the best milk there is in the first few days. It's that colostrum. She starts producing it between 16 and 20 weeks of pregnancy, typically. And so while it's in very small quantities, that colostrum, and it does change over and yield to this bigger, more mature milk supply, there is milk there. And it's the removal of that milk, that early colostrum, that really helps to support. And, I'll nerd out here for a minute on the secretory activation, also known as lactogenesis 2, which is what we've historically referred to commonly as the milk coming in. But in fact, that milk coming in is actually a milk transition from the colostrum, that lactogenesis 1, into the more mature milk, the lactogenesis 2. So sorry, bit of a side note there.
I really appreciate you pointing out that difference, is that we should not be thinking about our milk coming in. Your milk is already there. It just changes. And the colostrum may be a small amount, but it's gold, right?
Exactly. Liquid gold is what they call it. And the more frequently mom removes that milk from her breasts, the more often baby is nursing in the first couple of days, the more she's using those techniques of hand expression, the more quickly that milk will transition and the more robust supply that she will have in the days, the weeks, and potentially months into the future. Triple feeding is essentially when a new family, so let's just say it's a new mom and a new dad, and mom brings baby home from the hospital. She nurses the baby. That's the first in the triple. Then she passes baby over, for example, to dad, who will do a paste bottle feed while mom then pumps. You're basically feeding the baby at the breast, you're feeding the baby with the bottle, and you're also pumping to prepare the next bottle feed for the baby. And this might come as a surprise or shock, but triple feeding is something that, generally speaking, I discourage. Or in the cases where I find that it's absolutely necessary, it's something that I typically recommend for maybe 48 hours. So 24 to 48 hours, because just like you're feeding the baby 3 times, not to mention that you have all the pump parts and all the bottle parts to wash in between, it can add up in time that for a new set of parents, it takes an hour or an hour and a half to do this. And then sure enough, it's time to do it again in an hour. So I think that there are better options than triple feeding for babies who I mentioned.
I am so happy to hear you say this, because parents come to me on the triple feed and I'm like, I think maybe you should just stop, because pumping is so much work and I want the baby on the breast, which makes me wonder. And I tell parents this, and maybe I'm lying, but you can tell me because you're an expert. Is the nipple stimulation different when the baby's at the breast versus using the pump?
So much like how I was mentioning that babies will drink differently from a bottle than they will from the breast, we've come so far in so many advances in technology in this world. We have not figured out exactly how to make a pump as good as a baby. So it's an area that I'm sure has lots of opportunity for growth. And we've come a long way with double electric pumps and wearable pumps, but the stimulation will be different. And to my best knowledge, the only real consistent data coming out of studies on pumps is done by the pump manufacturers, who, of course, all have their own vested interest to make their pump the best. So, the way that a lot of pumps work is that they go really fast at the beginning, and that's meant to mimic that baby sucking quickly. And then the milk starts dripping, and perhaps those pumps that are double electric start to slow down. They might pump a little bit more strongly and a little bit less quickly. So slower but stronger as the pump session goes on. And depending on which pump you buy or rent, there are dozens of different cycles and variations. And to answer your question, no, we don't have the perfect pump that's as cute as a newborn infant that is going to likely elicit that oxytocin response. Oxytocin is that happy, loving hormone that we get when we hold and smell and touch our newborn baby, and when our newborn baby holds and touches and smells us. So it's interactive, and we just haven't come that far with the technology yet to replicate all those things.
If you need to use a pump for whatever reason, you're not with your baby, is there something that the mom can do while pumping that helps to mimic being the baby?
When I was a new nurse in the NICU, sometimes we would send home like a little washcloth or a little blanket that baby had been with in the NICU, home with mom, that she could put that either over her pump or to her nose and face and get baby scent while she was pumping. Some parents who are back to work and are separated from their babies that way, they've established a pretty robust milk supply because they had been nursing, but now they're needing to pump. They might watch a video of their baby on their phone. They might listen to that. I will occasionally, this is a bit unique. There is a diagnosis and a condition referred to as DMER, DMER, which is a dysphoric milk ejection reflex. And some people will describe a sense of depression, a sense of overwhelm, a sense of discomfort that's not physical, that's more mental and emotional with that milk ejection reflex. And one of the first remedies that I ever learned when I heard about this condition, probably a decade ago, was putting a piece of dark chocolate in your mouth while you're pumping or expressing milk. And it's not to chew it up and swallow it, but it's simply just to have that sensation, have that oral input, have that sensory input that's positive. And, I don't know all of the chemicals and biocomponents of a piece of dark chocolate and why that's necessarily the best choice, but that's what I was told. And occasionally I'll recommend that. So it can be obviously related to the baby, but it can also be related to something else. I had a friend and colleague years ago who, when she would go on her pump breaks at the university, would read People magazine and not look at all at the bottles. And it was like a little 15-minute break from her work day. So there are a number of ways. And probably the most important, which I haven't even mentioned yet, is that if a parent is using a double electric pump, it is really great to get some hands-on. You don't have to do it throughout the whole feed or throughout the whole pumping session, but just some gentle breast compressions, very gentle, I have to emphasize that, to help the fat in the milk, which is more sticky. And any parent who's ever pumped and put that milk in the fridge can see that cream rising to the top and being sticky around the outside of the bottle. Well, the theory is that that milk is also sticky in the breast. And so helping to move that milk out. So again, just some very gentle breast compressions, but it's great for mom to literally put her hand inside the bra and do that as a skin to skin compression, especially for somebody who has bigger breasts, potentially leaning over and moving some of that milk from underneath. Because while a baby who comes to the breast and feeds efficiently is massaging milk out, the pump itself is only making a vacuum, and it's just literally pulling on the nipple. So it doesn't stimulate the mammary tissue where the milk is made as well, typically as a baby does.
Nearly 1 in 3 kids deal with constipation and pooping problems. Their little guts are overwhelmed by factors like poor diets and antibiotic overuse. One of the best ways to help support digestion and their immune system is by adding prebiotics to their daily routine. Did you know that 70 to 80% of our immune cells live in the gut? A happy gut means a healthy kid, and prebiotics help feed and increase good gut bacteria in your kiddo's microbiome. In partnership with nutrition scientists and pediatricians, Begin Health created daily growing up prebiotics. It's the perfect prebiotic with 3 grams of fiber in every serving to support smoother and softer number twos, so potty time is smoother for the whole family. My patients tell me they love this tasteless and textureless powder because it mixes into their kids' favorite drink or food, making it easy to give to even picky eaters. Visit beginhealth.com today and get 25% off your order with my promo code NEXTDOOR, NEXTDOOR. Predictable potty time and the perfect poop is possible with Begin Health Daily Growing Up Prebiotics. Shelby mentioned paced bottle feeding, and that is something that deserves more attention. It's a method for feeding a baby with a bottle that more closely mimics feeding at the breast. And that's important because there isn't a whole lot a baby does in these first few months. They mostly just feed and sleep, and they learn by feeding. They learn more than you know, and we're going to talk about that too. Shelby and I talked specifically about this method of feeding from a bottle, and that's in this week's bonus episode. We also heard from her that the milk fat can be sticky, and I was so humbled by this. I've had a lot of patients tell me that they shake their breasts to mix the watery foremilk and fatty hind milk, and I kind of thought this was crazy because the milk is in ducts. Lots of small tubes in the breast. So I didn't understand how this could work. But Shelby explained that moms should not shake their breasts, but it is legit to gently massage the ducts to unstick the fat. What other advice and experience does she have to share?
Wendy, I very clearly remember being a new parent. And I think I'll only do this work as long as I have those memories, because if I become jaded or forgetful of how vulnerable this time really is, and how if you walked into my home and said, buy this product, it'll make your life better, it'll make your baby happier, it'll make your baby healthier, I would have given you all the money in my bank account to do so. So I try to be really careful to not market products or say, this is what you need to have a happy, healthy baby, because really love can go very, very far. And so I try to be careful and I try to be cautious. However, if there's one thing that I do think can be really helpful for a mom who's going to do any amount of pumping and she wants to put something on her baby registry or somebody wants to get her a gift, I think a hands-free pump bra is worth its weight. And especially for somebody who's going to be working and pumping, I think a hands-free pump bra is a great buy.
Can you explain what hunger cues are and what parents should be looking for?
I would love to, because I think it's such a common misconception that you'll know your baby is hungry when they start crying. When in fact, a hungry baby, so as we know, newborns do not come into the world speaking any language, and they're not going to let you know, hey, I'd love a snack right now, verbally or any particular spoken language, but they will give you a lot of cues to let you know that they're hungry in their nonverbal ways. So, early hunger cues are when a baby is demonstrating that they're ready to eat, and it's the ideal time to bring them to the breast so that they can learn how to breastfeed in a low stress way and a low stress way for the parent. So, early hunger cues are often demonstrated right when a baby wakes up. And so, that's another reason to hold your baby skin to skin, keep your baby close when they are sleeping. And as baby starts to wake up and starts to stir, they might make some simple movements with their hands, with their body and shoulders. As they start to get even more hungry, their eyes are going to open, they're going to look around. They might start to smack their lips a little bit or stick out their tongue. There's something called the rooting reflex, where if you were to touch the side of baby's face, they're going to actually follow you. Or if you were to touch the top of the lip, they'll lift their mouth wide open. And that's a reflex that helps with breastfeeding, because if baby is held up to the breast or nipple, and any woman who's pregnant can probably tell you that she's noticed some breast changes during pregnancy. One of those changes is often that the areola, the skin around the nipple and on the breast, becomes darker. It's sort of like a bullseye for that new baby to find where their food is. And again, very nerdy, but if you want to study the anatomy and physiology of breastfeeding, the areola has these little Montgomery glands on them that release a lubricant that smells to baby like the amniotic fluid. And so when they get to mom's breast, baby knows I'm home and begins to start breastfeeding. Those are the early cues that you're looking for. Rooting, eyes open, looking around. As baby progresses in those cues, they might start to make their fists tight, bring them to what we call the midline of the body, which is right in the center if you're looking from baby top to bottom. The fists are tight. They're often at the mouth, and sometimes babies are even sucking on the hands, which is one of the reasons why I'll often discourage mittens on a baby or the pajamas that act as little mittens. And I really like to leave babies' hands free, even if they're swaddled. And finally, once babies are really hungry, they begin to fuss, they begin to cry. You'll see redness in their face. And I have met all sorts of babies in my work and career, and some go from 0 to 60 really fast. And they are from those earliest cues to the very late cues in a matter of what feels like moments. And when I teach about early cues, it's not to stress parents out that they can't take a shower or make themselves a sandwich or change the baby's diaper. But what I want to educate is that the more you read your baby's newborn cues, the more of those early cues they'll give.
Oh,
Little humans are so brilliant that if we continue to miss their early cues and babies get fed when they start crying, they'll learn to skip the early cues and cry more. They're that smart that they go after what works. And so, knowing what the cues are, learning to read them and responding to them early really is what gives you a calm baby who you're interacting with. And so I really like to dispel any myth about spoiling a baby by holding them too much, because quite the contrary, the more you respond and react to their early cues, the calmer, easier, more conducive you are to meet the baby's needs, and the more secure they feel as they grow into infancy, into toddlerhood, preschooler. And I'm sure you could tell me a thing or two about teenagers, but I'm not quite there yet as a mom myself.
it is funny that parents come in all the time and they'll say, "My baby never cries. I know when to feed him." I'm like, that makes a lot of sense now. How do you respond to parents who ask you for a feeding schedule?
I pretty much explain that maybe a good analogy is filling up the tank of your car. That babies have a pretty small tank when they're first born. I like to point out the size of baby's fist and say that that's about how big their stomach is.
I
So
do the same.
okay, great. So because the tank is small, we have to refill it often. We have to refill it frequently. And so, I'm okay as an adult with 3 meals a day, but a newborn is not going to be okay with that. A newborn needs to typically eat, we say, a minimum of 8 to 12 times in 24 hours in the first few weeks of life. Many of your listeners, I'm sure, have maybe had an 8 to 5 job, for example, where you go to work at 8 a.m. and you're off at 5 p.m. And you do that full time, and it's laborious, it's hard work. I tell people who are pregnant to expect that full-time job to be split up into unpredictable increments in 10, 20, 45, 2-hour time slots throughout the 24 hours of the day. And that's what it literally takes to feed a newborn. And I don't want to dissuade them because I recognize that there are other things to do in the home and with a baby and with a newly postpartum parent in addition to feeding. But I think that it's appropriate to go into mothering and to go into parenthood with the anticipation of being tired, of needing to rest during the day so that you can meet your baby's needs overnight. Because to answer your question about a schedule, we're pretty much beholden to baby's schedule, definitely in the first days, the first weeks. And as I mentioned before, the more you can read those cues early on, dedicate yourself to that. I think about sort of like saving in a piggy bank. You're depositing into your baby's future and into the breastfeeding relationship. And over time, baby's belly does get bigger. The tank grows, they can hold more, and then those times between feeds will start to stretch out. But a parent who's pregnant and says, "Oh, I'm thinking about a schedule for the newborn weeks," the schedule should definitely be of people dropping off food for the new parents. The schedule should definitely be of somebody who could come over and throw in a load of laundry for the new parents. It should definitely be maybe a grocery delivery or a, pizza gift card sort of thing. But in terms of when the baby feeds and eats and, has a wet or dirty diaper, needs to be held, there just is no schedule for that.
Getting ready for a new baby is so exciting. If you're looking for a gift for a new mom, might we suggest a pump bra? They are designed to hold the flanges of a breast pump to free up mom's hands. Or you can bring by a casserole, do some laundry, run errands for the new mom, and share this information. We haven't even touched on some of the challenges of breastfeeding, like how long you can leave breast milk out of the refrigerator, why we love pacifiers, and when you can start using them, and all the other controversies about feeding babies. The rest of the story is in next week's episode. For more from the Pediatrician Next Door, find me on the web at pediatriciannextdoorpodcast.com. If you've got a question about the weird things kids do, send an email to hello@pediatriciannextdoorpodcast.com for a chance to hear your voice on the show. I'm Dr. Wendy Hunter, and I'm the Pediatrician Next Door. This show is produced by Red Rock Music. Make sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever it is you're listening. I'll be back next time with more. Dude, I killed that.